Welcome to the deep dive. You know, we love taking things you might just walk past every day or maybe have in your freezer and really pulling back the curtain. Today we're doing just that with pelmeni, the Russian dumpling. It looks simple, right?
Oh, absolutely. You see this little parcel of meat wrapped in dough, and you think, okay, comfort food. But honestly, there is such a deep story packed inside. It's about survival. It's about human ingenuity facing some seriously harsh conditions.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because it taps into something universal, doesn't it? I mean, wrapping tasty stuff in dough. Think about Turkish mantir,
Mm.
Chinese jiaozi, Italian ravioli. It's like this global instinct.
Exactly. It serves basic needs.
Hmm.
Comfort, a neat delivery system for flavor, and often, crucially, preservation.
Hmm.
But that's what makes Pelmeni's story so specific, its particular form. That was dictated almost entirely by the climate it came from.
Right. So our mission today for you listening is to really get into that. We're going beyond just the recipe. We want to pull out the history, the clever culinary tricks, and what it really means culturally, how sheer necessity shaped this thing.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so origins. Where does this story start? Most sources seem to agree. Siberia. Deep in Siberia.
Yep, the consensus points there. Probably around the 14th century is when it really starts taking the shape we know.
And the why is Siberia, that's the core of it, isn't it?
It really is. You have to look at the peoples there, the Finno-Ugric communities, the Komi, especially up near the Ural Mountains. I mean, imagine winters that are literally 8 months long. Temperatures way, way below freezing. You can't just rely on, salting or curing meat to get you through that, not on a large scale.
So this is where it gets really clever. They essentially weaponized the cold, right? They used the environment itself.
That's the key innovation. It wasn't just the wrapping, though that helped. It was using the sub-zero temperatures of the massive natural freezer right outside their doors.
Okay, explain that bit. They made them and just threw them outside.
Pretty much. They'd prepare the pelmeni, fill them with raw mincemeat, usually a mix, beef, pork, maybe some game like elk or bear back then. And then, crucially, they'd lay them out in the snow or freezing air to flash freeze solid instantly.
And that was better than, say, just drying the meat. Why the dough?
Ah, good question. The dough wrapper is genius. It forms this perfect little protective casing. It slows down oxidation, prevents that awful freezer burn you get on exposed meat. All the fat, the moisture, it's sealed inside. So it stays stable, nutritious, basically indefinitely until you drop it in boiling water.
Wow.
It's a calorie bomb, a lifeline stored right outside your hut, needing zero extra resources once made.
So it's basically one of the world's first, mass-produced frozen convenience foods,
Yeah.
just without the industry.
Exactly. Pre-industrial frozen food, designed purely for survival.
Sure.
And that efficiency, that portability, small, hard frozen nuggets, made it perfect for travel.
Which is how it spread.
Precisely. It moved relatively quickly across Russia. Traders, explorers, soldiers carried it. We see it reaching places like Moscow, St. Petersburg by the 15th, 16th centuries. And there are some great historical anecdotes about Russian soldiers on campaign, especially in winter. They'd carry huge sacks of these frozen pelmeni, just boil snow, drop them in, and boom, hot meal.
And that practical advantage lasted, didn't it? It wasn't just ancient history.
Oh, absolutely. Fast forward to the 20th century. We've actually seen references in Soviet military archives from the 1940s. Pelmeni listed as standard field rations. Why? Same reasons. Unbeatable shelf life in the cold, high calories, easy to prepare. Proven technology.
Okay, so the Siberian origin, driven by cold, seems really solid. But is that the only story? Is there another angle?
Well, that's where it gets interesting academically. Was it purely an invention of the Urals or more of an adaptation?
Right, this is the other perspective we wanted to bring to you. There's a compelling theory that the idea itself, the concept of the filled dumpling, might have migrated.
Hmm. Some historians argue there could be an influence from Chinese jiaozi or similar dumplings. The thinking is the idea traveled west, maybe along those northern trade routes, through Siberia, the sort of Siberian Silk Road.
Does the timing work for that?
It does, yeah. Those routes were active then. And there's some linguistic evidence, too. If you look at Ural folk records, 14th, 15th century stuff, they document words sounding like pelmen, which apparently translates roughly to something like ear-shaped bread filled with meat. Pel for ear, nan for bread.
Ear-shaped, because of the folded shape.
Exactly. So the name itself might hint at its form. It suggests the concept was there, maybe interacting with ideas coming from the east.
And we can actually trace its spread within Russia, too, right? There was that historian.
Nikolai Ivanovich Kostomorov. Yes,
Yeah.
19th century.
Yeah.
He did important work documenting how pelmeni spread out from those Finno-Ugric groups and really became embedded in broader Russian food culture.
Okay, so we have written records. Is there anything else, like physical evidence?
There is actually archaeological finds. Near places like Perm and Tobolsk, they found traces of what look like frozen meat dumplings. And these finds date back to around the 15th century, so it confirms people were making and freezing these things pretty early on.
Okay, so it's this amazing survival tool, maybe a bit of a culinary hybrid. But food isn't just about survival, is it? It becomes culture.
Absolutely, and Pelmeni is a prime example. It moved way beyond just being rations. It became this powerful symbol, family, togetherness, tradition, resilience, really, holding back the cold together.
You mentioned the sheer effort involved, making enough for a whole winter. That must have been a huge undertaking before modern grinders and freezers.
Monumental. And this led to the tradition of Pelmeni making days.
Like a big communal work party?
Exactly. Usually held just before the really deep freeze hit. The whole household, sometimes neighbors too, would pitch in, and the roles were often divided.
Mm.
Maybe the men handled grinding the meat, seasoning the filling. The women would be masters of the dough, rolling it thin, cutting the circles. It's an art.
And the kids?
The kids were essential. They'd often be tasked with the sealing, pinching the edges just right, making sure each little dumpling was perfectly sealed. That's critical.
You can just picture it, can't you? A cold Siberian night outside, but inside the kitchen, it's warm, flour everywhere, maybe hundreds, even thousands of these things being made.
It's more than just making food. It's passing down skills, telling stories, building bonds between generations. Right there over the dough and filling.
And that deep connection, that's why it lasts.
That's absolutely why it's such a potent cultural marker today. You see Russian immigrant communities all over the world, London, New York, Berlin, wherever. They still have these big pelmeni-making sessions, especially around New Year's. It's a taste of home, a way to connect with their heritage, teach their kids. It's tangible culture.
It really is. Okay, so for anyone listening who's thinking, right, I want to understand this, maybe even try making it. Let's get practical. The anatomy. What makes a traditional pelmeni?
Okay, the basics. Dough. Usually just flour, water, maybe an egg, salt. Simple. But the texture is everything. It needs to be rolled incredibly thin, paper thin almost, but it still has to be elastic, strong.
Why the elasticity?
Because it has to survive going from frozen solid to boiling water without bursting or tearing. That's a huge temperature shock.
Right. And the filling, you said simple earlier.
Traditionally, yes. Very simple. Often a mix of beef and pork, maybe some lamb or game, depending on the region. Finely minced or ground, seasoned basically with just finely chopped onions, salt, and pepper. That's usually it.
No garlic, no fancy herbs.
Not traditionally, no. The flavor comes from the quality of the meat and the fat rendering as it cooks. It's quite minimalist.
And cooking, always boiled.
Typically boiled in well-salted water, yeah.
Mm.
Sometimes people pan-fry them lightly after boiling to get them a bit crispy, but boiling is standard.
Okay. And serving, what goes with them?
Hot. They have to be served absolutely piping hot, straight from the pot, classic toppings. Melted butter is common, a big dollop of thick sour cream smetana. And often, maybe surprisingly, a dash of vinegar. Or just black pepper, something sharp to cut the richness.
Vinegar, interesting. Okay, now, the secrets. You hinted at some things earlier. What are the key chef secrets for making truly great pelmeni, not just okay ones?
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. First, that dough balance we talked about. It's a real tight rope. Too soft, it gets waterlogged and gummy when boiled. Too stiff, you can't roll it thin enough. And crucially, you can't get a perfect seal.
And a bad seal ruins it.
Completely. The juices leak out during boiling. You end up with dry, tough filling and soggy dough. Disaster. So the dough needs to be pliable but resilient.
Got it. Then you mentioned something about ice water in the filling.
Yes. This is a pro tip, really. When you're mixing the raw meat filling, incorporate a little bit of ice-cold water or even tiny bits of crushed ice. As the pelmeni boils, that ice melts inside the sealed dumpling. It creates steam, keeps the meat incredibly moist and tender. It also helps the fat render nicely and emulsify a bit so you get a succulent filling, not a dense little meatball.
Clever. And the other cold trick, freezing them slightly before boiling, even if you're not storing them long term.
Yes, this is crucial too. Even for a fresh batch you plan to eat right away. Give them at least, say, 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour, in the freezer before boiling.
What does that do?
It firms up the dough, especially the edges where you sealed it. So when it hits that rapidly boiling water, the seal doesn't immediately cook through and potentially split open. It helps lock everything inside. Maintains the shape.
Ah, okay. So chill first, then boil hard.
Exactly. And eat immediately. They don't wait. Once they cool, the dough can get tough. Hot is key.
That's brilliant practical advice. So thinking about its journey, it started raw, frozen, stored for months. It really is one of the first frozen convenience foods, like you said.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And that legacy lives on. Sure, homemade pelmeni are special, especially for holidays like New Year's. It's a whole ritual. But walk into any supermarket in Russia or Eastern Europe, you'll see huge freezer bags of frozen pelmeni. It's an absolute staple. A direct line back to that 14th century Siberian survival tactic.
And it's still evolving. People are playing with the fillings now.
Oh, for sure. While the classic meat filling is king, you see modern versions everywhere. Mushroom fillings are popular, potato, various cheeses, even fancy restaurant versions with things like salmon and dill or duck confit. The wrapper is such a perfect vessel, chefs love to experiment. But the core idea, the technique, remains.
So wrapping this up, the big picture here. Pelmeni is just so much more than meets the eye.
It really is. It encapsulates so much. Human ingenuity, turning a harsh reality, that intense cold, into an advantage. It's about community, generations working together. It's culinary art born from pure necessity.
It definitely makes you pause and think, doesn't it? This simple little dumpling holds centuries of history, climate adaptation, cultural bonding, even battlefield logistics.
Absolutely. It's a testament to how practical needs and maybe those cross-cultural exchanges on trade routes can blend together to create something enduring. Tradition meets application.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about the everyday foods in your own kitchen. How many of them, like pelmeni, might have these hidden histories, stories rooted in ancient survival strategies, clever preservation techniques, maybe even the simple physics of weather?
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. What seemingly ordinary staple on your plate is actually a silent monument to human creativity and historical necessity that you just haven't looked closely at before. Something to definitely chew on.